You always came out Friday nights.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Hi. Hi. Oh, you do have it. Welcome back. So we've been talking about chapter 15, about the Beinoni that serves God and the Beinoni that doesn't serve God. And we just want to sum this up again. At the beginning of the Tanya, chapters 1 to 8 was the information we need to then put into practice the techniques we're about to start learning. So we learned about the soul, the structure of the soul, the garments of the soul, the two souls, and how that projects into the world as well in terms of klipa and holiness. Then in chapter 9 we learned about the battlefield between the souls, so to speak. 10 and 11 was the tzaddik and the rasha, and chapters 12 through this 15 have been the Beinoni and the structure and the ideas behind the Beinoni. And for the most part, it's been the alti rasha, don't be a self-centered person, part of the oath from chapter 1. Remember, is it be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. So being a Beinoni essentially is about not being a rasha. Right? Not in thought, not in speech, not in behavior. And we learned how a Beinoni does that by working with their mind to create a love in the right side of the heart and overcome the nefesh, behamit's emotions in the left side of the heart. And that's kind of by willpower, that's by force, for the most part. Now the Alter Rebbe's transition away from being don't be a self-centered person to still try to be a tzaddik. Even though we've looked at the definition of a tzaddik, and it seems like this is a superhuman, and it's beyond the potential of most souls to be a tzaddik, we still have taken an oath to try to be a tzaddik. That's why at the end of chapter 14, he talked about taking time to meditate, to try and create the kind of feelings that tzaddik has, even if it's just an illusion. And then in 15, he talked about even if you're a Beinoni, you still have to be a Beinoni that serves God. Right? So even if I've managed this part of the oath, don't be a rasha, I'm 100% all the time, I will never sin, I still can't give up on the first part of the oath, try to be a tzaddik. And that's the whole point of that chapter, is that you can't let yourself slide back to automatic. The essence of a Beinoni's value in the world is that they're always pushing themselves to go to the next inch, or the next mile, the next parsa, whatever you're going to call it. Right? And so once a Beinoni says, okay, this is easy for me now, I'm settling back, now they're not serving God. They have to still try to be a tzaddik, along with not being a rasha, which they've accomplished. So let's finish our chapter. We're on page 228. And then today we're going to start...
227.
Do we not get to the bottom of...
No, 227, 24, 7.
Oh, there, okay. Good, thank you. And then I hope we'll get to this is kind of the key technique of the Tanya. This is the primary pathway for, as we said, for a soul to flow most efficiently through a body, as the composite beings we are. This is the user's guide to the soul, and this is kind of the key technique, is the long short way, which is the next two chapters, right? 16, 17. So I'm excited to start that today. So yes, you are on the 24th of Tevet, 227. Thank you. וזה יובן מה שכתוב בגמרא דעובד אלוקים. היינו מי ששונה פרקו 101 ולא עבדו, היינו מי ששונה פרקו 100 לבד. Let's go this way, go ahead.
This explains the Talmudic statement that he who serves God refers to one who reviews his studies 101 times, while he who serves him not refers to one who reviews his studies only 100 times. It seems strange that this 101st revision should outweigh all the previous 100 and should earn the student the designation of he who serves God. However, when we appreciate the struggle one must face in order to learn more than is his custom, this is readily understood as the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain.
Right, so I reviewed it 100 times. What's one more time? What difference does it make? But 100 was your custom. That was normal for you. 101, that you had to push yourself. So that's even a Beinoni that has reached this incredible level of self-mastery. Now they've got to be a Beinoni plus more today than I was yesterday. right? I'm always comparing myself to my own standard. והיינו משום שבימיהם היה הרגילות לשנות כל פרק 100 פעמים.
This is so because in those Talmudic days it was customary to review each lesson 100 times. Thus, to review 100 times did not require any effort. It was the second nature. Only the 101st revision was required effort beyond the student's custom, could gain him the appellation of he who serves God.
It's hard for us to imagine because we're so used to having a Talmud on the shelf in the library and everything's online. But this was an oral tradition. It was not written down. There was no such thing as a Talmud. So your teacher knew what Rava said and what Akiva said, etc. And if you wanted to learn it, you had to listen to your teacher carefully, and then you sat down with your partner and you reviewed it again and again and again and again until you remembered exactly who said what in what order. There was no other way to learn the oral tradition. So reviewing 100 times, that's just what you did, right? That was normal. Hard for us to imagine because we say, I know where it is on the shelf, I can go find it. I don't have to review it 100 times. That was just the only way you could possibly learn. So any student was used to that. 101, that's extra, right? Kidita hatam b'gemara, mashal mishuk shel chamarim, שנזכרים לסר פרסי בזוזה ולאחד 10 פרסי ביטרי זוזה מפני שהוא יותר מהרגילותם.
The Talmud illustrates this by the analogy of the market of the donkey drivers. The drivers would charge 1 zuz for 10 parsi, Persian miles, but demanded 2 zuz for driving 11 parsi. For driving an 11th mile exceeded their customary practice.
All right, so this was Hillel's answer to Ben Hehe. When Ben Hehe said, what's the deal with why, if you remember at the beginning of the chapter, why to say, then you know the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, between one who serves God and one who doesn't serve God. Why the extra terms? And Hillel said, it's like the donkey drivers, right? You just paid someone a zuz to go 10 parsi, and now you're going to pay them a whole entire zuz to go an extra 11th? It's because the donkey's not used to it, the driver's not used to it, they're going beyond their normal. And same thing with us, we need to push ourselves to be someone who serves God at every level. We want to always go that extra one parsa. ולכן זאת הפעם 101 היתרה על הרגילות שהורגל מנעוריו שכולה כנגד כולם.
Therefore, this 101st revision, which is beyond the normal practice to which the student has been accustomed since his childhood, is equivalent to all the previous 100 revisions combined.
ועולה על גביהן ביתר שאת ויתר עוז להיות נקרא עובד אלוקים.
In fact, its quality surpasses them in its greater strength and power, so that it is only this one extra revision which entitles the student to be called he who serves God.
Right? Maybe this is a tzaddik, maybe this is an Eved Elokim, a servant of God, and that's their title, and they're comfortable with that, that's their nature. But to be one who's serving God, right? To be an Oved Elokim, now you got to be pushing yourself, whatever level you're at. מפני שכדי לשנות טבע הרגילות, צריך לעורר את האהבה לשם על ידי שמתבונן בגדולת השם במוחו.
For in order to change his habitual nature, he must arouse within himself the love of God by contemplating God's greatness in his mind.
Now he's touching on the next chapters that we're going to look at, which is how do you change your nature? If my nature is to learn 100 times, and I don't want to sit on automatic, I want to change my nature and keep growing spiritually, how do I do that? Right? What's the technique? And the technique involves Hamoch Shlit Alev, the mind controls the heart, and by focusing and meditating, as we're about to learn, that's how I transform my emotions from being self-centered. Okay, 100 times, good. Now let me go have a brownie and a nap. Instead, no, I'm gonna let me 100 times is normal. Let me do 101. Let me make sure I'm growing today, right? And to do that, I have to focus my mind on, as we'll see, divine concepts, and that will manufacture, create, and inspire intellectually motivated emotions. It's a particular particular flavor of emotions. לשלוט על הטבע שבחלל השמאלי המלא דם הנפש הבעמית שמהקליפה.
In order to master the nature that is in the left part of the heart, the seat of the animal soul, which is full of the blood of the animal soul originating in Kalipa.
שממנה הוא הטבע,
Whence comes this nature, and the power of his love enables him to transcend his nature.
וזוהי עבודה תמה לבינוני.
And this, to overpower one's animal soul through the love of God generated by meditation, is a perfect gift service for a being.
Right, so we understand now the structure of the two souls and the heart and what's going on in consciousness, and what the point of the Tanya is learning to get the divine soul to be the one that thinks, speaks, and acts, but also, as we'll see, to let the divine soul start to transform the animal soul in whatever way is possible for us. Right, that's what this technique is about. And that is perfect service for Beinoni. We'll get to that, right? We'll get to that. ולעורר את האהבה המסותרת שבליבו.
An alternate type of service for Beinoni is to arouse to a revealed state the love of God inherently found hidden in his heart.
Right, and this is the other path, the short, long path that we'll learn starting in chapter 18. למשול על ידה על הטבע שבחלל השמאלי.
Thereby to control the nature that is in the left part of the heart.
It does the same thing, right? If you want to be a Beinoni, and that means whatever I feel, I'm still going to do the correct thing, the other-centered thing. But my response to my feelings will always be 100%. The short, long path also works, right? Although we're not calling it the perfect service for a Beinoni in the same way. Because a Beinoni really wants to be about using their intellect to create emotions if possible. שזו נקרא גם כן עבודה, this too called serving God, להילחם עם הטבע והיצר על ידי שמעורר אהבה המסותרת בליבו. To wage?
To wage a war against his nature and inclination by arousing the love hidden in his heart.
So either of those is fine. That's also called serving God. You're Oved Elohim in that case. מה שאין כן כשאין לו מלחמה כלל.
If, however, he wages no war at all, not engaging even in the lesser struggle of arousing the love hidden within him, as in when he studies only to the limits of his natural diligence, then although he employs his hidden love of God in his divine service, yet.
And here, big warning as we go into the technique, even though this is a Beinoni, remember, this whole chapter is talking about Beinoni, אין אהבה זו מצד עצמה נקראת עבודתו כלל.
This love in itself can in no way be credited to his service, and he is therefore called he who serves him not. To be designated one who serves God, the Beinoni must engage in a struggle with his evil inclination, even through a love of God born of meditation, or at least by arousing his hidden love.
These are very, very terrifying words to, students of the Alter Rebbe, that they might be a Beinoni, but still their avoida, their service of God, the point of meditation, as we'll discuss, is not to elevate consciousness to states of spirituality where we transcend normal time and space. The point of meditation is actually, avodah is to change and elevate the emotions, and in particular my base emotions. And that work, I have to be doing it myself. If I'm relying on this inherent love that every Jew receives from sort of epigenetically from our ancestors, it's them doing the work, right? If I say, it's Isaac's strength that is buried in me that even without my knowledge allowed me to do this. Okay, Isaac did the work, not me, right? From generations and generations ago, I'm still relying on that great spirit that represented Gevura, and that's inside me, and that's driving me, but I haven't even consciously brought that into my awareness. I haven't even bothered to do that kind of work. So there's none of my work involved. I'm piggybacking on the work that I inherited, right? So even though I made it on a level of Beinoni, very rare, because I haven't done my own work that day, I'm not one who serves God. So whatever level you're at, this is kind of a warning shot. You got to get up and you got to sweat each day to make sure that you've gone past your limits even a little bit. So any questions about that's a lot we've gone over? Any big questions or confusions around terms or anything?
Well, I don't know this concept here. I mean, these guys are trying so hard to do their studies, and then
Yeah.
it's not good enough. Somebody comes by and says, you're not good enough.
Well, yeah, this isn't just somebody coming by. This isn't like me going, oh, you're Beinoni, but really, this is the the great master of this tradition who they've come to presumably for advice. So, this is coming from a teacher that presumably they're learning with, and he's saying, okay, you come to me, these are the standards, and I'm going to give you honest feedback, and that's what a teacher is supposed to do. Yeah. So no, it's not. It's not just somebody walking down the street saying, well, are you serving today?
But I
Yeah.
mean,
Sorry, I didn't repeat the question. The question was, it seems a little harsh that someone's working so hard, and yet you're saying, well, someone could just come by and say, well, you're not working today, right? Well, this is a very intimate relationship between a student and a teacher, where the Alter Rebbe is saying, okay, this is the progress you made, but don't sit on your laurels, right? You've come to me for guidance, and I'm telling you, even if you're at this great height and compared to everyone you know, you're a spiritual giant. You're the same spiritual giant you were yesterday, so you haven't worked, and it's not you serving God, right? So yeah, it's exacting. I'd say it's exacting. I don't think it's harsh because it's coming from a teacher they've come to for advice, right? We're all having a private audience with the Alter Rebbe when we learn this, and so if we're coming to a great spiritual master for advice, we're going to get advice.
we should give them grade marks.
Grade marks, that'd be nice. You get a Beinoni badge.
Are these students that all they do is go to the Alter Rebbe and pray and do all this type of
So
thing?
let me
Not
give you-
the ordinary person.
Yeah, let me give you an example. The question is, are these students of Alter Rebbe, or are they just someone that's trying to learn? To give you an example of the dedication and the sort of lifestyle of the typical student of the Alter Rebbe, there's a story. They say that the early Hasidim, when they come to the Alter Rebbe's hometown to learn with him, because you'd hear about, books were handwritten, so you couldn't. Well, no, there was a printing press by then, but it was hard to get writings, and this was just 2 generations after the Baal Shem Tov, and so most people were just Jewish, and they'd be great scholars. They'd hear about this weird Hasidic thing, and they want to learn about this Alter Rebbe business, and they had to pick up their lives and go and travel and spend a few years in this town to learn this thing. And so these were dedicated people coming into it, right? I mean, it wasn't like me where I just go online and spend 20 minutes listening to a class and try and learn it. I had to leave my home and leave everything and go and learn, and so it was a big commitment going in. And the first thing they were told by the Alter Rebbe was, anything that is not permitted is not permitted, and anything that is permitted is not necessary. Right? That's the first thing. Anything that is, call it forbidden, is forbidden, and anything that's permitted is not necessary. Right? So of course, I'm not allowed to eat the bacon cheeseburger on Pesach. That's forbidden, I know that. But wait a minute, I can have a nice slice of challah on a Monday morning, right? I mean, it's kosher, I'm saying a blessing, it's good, right? Yeah, it's permitted, but it's not necessary. Right? Only something that's essential to you, that's what's necessary. Everything else, and they would actually spend 3 years absorbing that and saying, you know what? I wake up on Monday morning and I really want a slice of challah. And it's kosher challah, and I can do a blessing, and I've given my tzedakah, and it's fine, right? I mean, a Jew can sit and enjoy challah, but just because I want it, just because my nefesh b'amid is saying, yeah, challah, good idea, I'm not going to have the challah, right? Not because it's a sin, not because I'm halachically, higher up by not having it, just because I wanted it, and what I want is not necessary. Only what I need is necessary, right? And by doing that, they'd actually break the drive of the animal soul, and they'd work on that for 3 years, and then once they'd internalize that, they'd have their first private audience with the Alter Rebbe, their first Yechidus.
Wow.
That's 3 years. Yeah, wow. So a person who comes to the Alter Rebbe in that state of mind, this is not a person who's like, well, he wasn't nice enough to me. They dedicated themselves, and they want honest opinion about their progress, and then they want something that they could take away for the next 6 months, the next year, and work on. They sense inside, they sense inside the great love the Alter Rebbe had for every Jew, and for them in particular as their students. So they knew this was a person who loved them, and that they felt. But in terms of the advice they got, they wanted something that they could sit with for the next 6 months or year that would serve them to bring them to the next level in a serious way. So they didn't really want the Alter Rebbe to say, oh, yeah, you're a Beinoni, great, right? But now what? I'm here, tell me. I spent 3 years internalizing, tell me, what's my next year like? So that's the state of mind of the typical person that this was addressed to. We're learning it maybe as more people peripherally kind of benefit from it, but understand that's the posture of most people that came, a chassid that came to a Rebbe.
So it seems that they weren't studying just to learn stuff.
Right.
They had a purpose, a different purpose for their studying.
Yeah.
And the purpose, to that end, they were more than willing to accept the boundaries that were set for them.
Yeah. They had a purpose for learning, and they were accepting boundaries.
Yeah, if you're studying just to study because I want to know, but this was a different reason for studying.
But
Yeah.
they wanted to elevate themselves.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, this is self-transformation. So I'm learning
Right.
to elevate the world, to cause, delight for God, and to transform myself. You had
No,
any other big, yeah?
I have a problem with the challah.
Go ahead. Fire away. We have a problem with the challah.
Yeah, not necessary, but food is necessary for sustenance of the body.
Yeah, but so is black bread, right? So you can have challah, you can have black bread, you can have potatoes. So their feeling was when it comes to worldly things, one is the same as the other. It makes no difference to me, right? It's not necessary to have beautiful, sweet, fresh challah. I could just have some normal black bread. And specifically, if I find myself craving that challah, well, am I really going to care about learning? Am I really going to care about serving people around me if I'm busy enjoying what my animal soul wants, right? So of course, there's no halakhic reason to not have the challah, right? I mean, this is completely beyond halakha. There's nothing immoral about having the challah. There's nothing wrong at all about having the challah. But if you really want to work on yourselves, you don't ask yourself, which soul is having the challah, right? Is it my animal soul or my divine soul? Which one is sitting down and eating, right? And I want my divine soul to be the one that sits down and eats, even if the animal soul would have been doing everything appropriately. That's the work here.
Yeah, but maybe after he ate the challah, he'd be more willing to study and do his.
Yeah, no, that's the whole point. You're on exceptional ground saying you can have the challah, it's going to help me do mitzvahs, it's going to bring me joy, and then I'll be happier with people around me. You're standing on both legs, and there's no reason to not have the challah. Still, that was 3 years to internalize this work, to make sure the animal soul was in its place, and the divine soul was running the show internally. So that's.
Matter of taking charge and being in control.
Yeah.
So then do the students after 3 years go back to where they came from?
I don't know. Usually, once you have your first yechidus, now you're learning with the Alter Rebbe, and it's different. Some people had to go home practically to earn a living. Some people could stay for many years, and some people travel back and forth. But these towns were not very far from each other. If you travel from your town, like a 2 days journey by horse and carriage, it's like Oak Park, right? So.
you're saying whatever you don't want, you don't,
And hopefully the wife was working at home.
What's forbidden is forbidden,
what you don't want,
and what you do want
what you
is
want,
not necessary.
not necessary. Just say, okay.
Sorry, no. What's forbidden is forbidden, and what's allowed is not necessary. What's allowed is not necessary. That's the word. All right, so the long short way. We now had our first several yechiduses with the Alter Rebbe, where he's explained to us who we are. We're two souls. the structure of those souls, the nature of those souls. He's described to us the different types of personalities that we might be, a Rasha, Tzaddik, or Banani, and guess which one most of us are. And he said, you know what? You got to try to be Tzaddik, but the work for you is to rise to the level of Banani. That's what you're going to work at every day, right? And that means controlling thought, speech, and action 100% of the time, and even thought, right? So now I've learned about that. I've learned my tool that the moach shalir lev, that the mind can control the heart, and that even if it's basically my nefesh bamit is just throwing all kinds of crazy ideas into my mind, self-centered ideas, I can still assert that my mind can push that out of its space and think about the exact opposite, and that I can speak and do whatever my mind directs, even if my heart is just kicking and screaming the whole way. Right? So that's our basic tool for being a Banani. And also that when I pray in the morning, I can actually get a little burst of energy from the divine light that comes into my consciousness, and I can have a respite from that struggle where my animal soul has been kicking and screaming, and I'm spending the whole day kind of white-knuckling through the day and making sure that I only think, say, and do the right things. Now I have a moment to say the Shema and really get into that, and now I stop white-knuckling, and suddenly I have the experience of what it's like to be more of a pseudo-tzaddik, right? And I'm not bothered by my animal soul. And that maybe makes the rest of my day a little easier. But is that all? I'm really going to be left in that state where my outsides are at 100%, but my insides are still like the day I was born. I'm like a toddler, right? Maybe that creates a certain kind of tension. And also, is that really how I want to spend my life as a Jew? And I want to have my relationship with God that, well, I know it's right, so I'm going to do it. Right? Imagine if that was my marriage, right? And I know I should bring roses on Valentine's Day, so I'm just going to do it. Don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it, right? And I should clean the dishes. Well, I hate doing that, but I'm going to do it. And I should say I love you. All right, here are the words, I love you, right? I mean, what a horrible reality if that's all there is, right? Don't we want those moments where I'm full of joy for doing this thing? And of course, I bring 3 dozen roses because I'm so grateful to spend my life with this person. And I do the dishes knowing the pleasure it gives my wife to have it done. And I say I love you because I have no other focus right now. That's what I'm feeling to the depths of my heart, right? So don't we want there to be times when that is our relationship with the Ein Sof, where we're not this Banani that's using our mind to assert over our inner nature, but where we actually have somehow transformed our inner nature and we're doing it out of love like we do for our family, for our friends, for our children, for our hobbies, right? You see someone that likes golf, and you know, you don't have to convince them to tell you about their latest golf club, you know. You're going to sit for the next hour and then they'll tell you with animated face, you know, they love it, right? So how do we get ourselves to that state when it comes to this practice? And the other part is about meditation. And that's the key of this chapter, is that we're using Jewish meditation to actually learn to create those kinds of emotions, right? The enthusiasm of a golf enthusiast, the love of a grandparent for a grandchild, the romance and excitement of a couple that's just met, or a couple that's just gotten engaged. We want to somehow enter into that space in our heart, so we're not always fighting the battle of this Banani. And the way to do that is meditation. And just 2 important points about Jewish meditation, because I know many of us, and those of us watching, may have practiced Eastern meditation, which became very popular in America in the 60s. And I think it's great if you're really stressed and your mind is turbulent and you want to calm down, and many good practices from Zen or from yoga perhaps that will achieve that. But beyond that, those styles of meditation, in my experience, mainly with Zen meditation and a little bit with yoga, are we develop techniques and practices and focuses to calm down and focus on breathing and other things and empty the mind entirely so that consciousness elevates into a more and more spiritual state until we ultimately transcend the illusion of reality. And everybody agrees, every spiritual master agrees, a normal person is experiencing reality as something, an illusion, right? Judaism says there's only one being here in this room, right? So why do I see so many people? It's an illusion, right? I mean, I think I'm seeing multiple beings in here, and we're all just one light. So my whole experience of reality is an illusion according to Judaism. In the East, they also say it's an illusion, and they say, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but in general, you want to just transcend the whole schmear, right? But in the East, we do it by emptying the mind for sustained periods of time, focusing on either a random, call it like a candle or a flower, or a random mantra that has no internal meaning. And then by techniques quieting the mind until I transcend reality and my consciousness becomes much more spiritual, call it. And that does provide a glimpse past the illusion of our view, but that's not at all the purpose of Jewish meditation. Jewish meditation does not want to empty the mind and leave it empty. And Jewish meditation is not there for us to elevate our consciousness and experience higher and higher states of spirituality. I mean, that will happen. You will experience higher states of spirituality, but that's not why we're meditating. In Judaism, the reason we're meditating is because I want to take the self-centered emotions that I was born with and that naturally occur to me, and I want to work to transform those and change those into other-centered emotions where I care about the people around me and I care about God, and those are kind of the same thing in the end, because guess what? We're all the same. There's only one being here. So if I care about you, I'm caring about God. If I care about God, I must be caring about you. And if I only care about God and I don't care about people around me, I've gone off the path, right? And for us, when I work on myself and I change a self-centered emotion, where I, in this situation, would have naturally gotten angry or gotten afraid or gotten self-centered, and I work on myself as we described through meditation, so that now the intellect of the divine soul is integrated with my emotions, and my emotions now flow differently. Okay, I haven't elevated my consciousness in the same way. I'm not experiencing nirvana, so to speak. I'm just experiencing care for someone else, or I would have experienced care for myself, but I've taken a tangible piece of my physicality, my physical emotions, and I've elevated them. Right? I've taken a bunch of earth and I've rummaged through and I found a diamond in there, and I've tossed it up into my vault, if you like, or I've tossed it back up to its source, and I've elevated a piece of the world, and that's why we meditate. So we're not elevating our consciousness. It's actually the mitzvahs and the Torah that we learn. It's that is flying up to unite with the sefirot in whatever world I'm functioning in. That's more kabbalistic, and we'll get to that a little later in this chapter. But I want you to, as we approach Jewish meditation, I want you to understand the difference. It's not about elevating my consciousness. It's about changing my emotions so that when I do a good thing, when I have the challah on Friday night, I stop, I recognize I'm doing this to bring joy to the infinite, and then using my technique, I can now focus and create both love and awe. And as we'll see, those two emotions of love and awe of the divine soul, we call them in the Zohar, those are wings that allow the mitzvah itself to elevate to the sefirot of some particular world. And that there's also a technique in that. Which world they go to depends on where it came from, blah, blah, blah. But that's the difference. It's not me elevating my consciousness. It's me doing work on my emotions to now elevate the mitzvah that I've done or the Torah that I'm learning. Because and this is getting into later chapters, my soul, I can experience more and more spirituality, but it's still my consciousness experiencing oneness and spirituality. It's still a me, there's a center in there no matter what. As we learn, the Torah and the mitzvahs, those are never separated from chokhmah and ratzon of the Ein Sof. They're never separated from, let's call it, the intellect and the will of the Ein Sof. So they can completely elevate and completely merge back with the sefirot of whatever world I'm working in. And when I do that, I'm elevating the world around me, not elevating my own consciousness. So in the end, the product of meditation may look more like someone sitting next to somebody else, and the person is holding a glass of wine and doing a blessing, and they look like they're really into it maybe, and then they drink the wine and have a conversation. I don't feel like I'm sitting next to a great master. They're not levitating off the ground. They're not glowing. They don't have an aura. They're just happy about doing a blessing. Okay, they like wine. I don't know. Little do I know that they have now focused their mind on their emotions. They've elevated the mitzvah they're doing, and that mitzvah has taken the spark in that wine and the spark in their emotions and elevated it not to a spiritual state, but outside the spiritual entirely, to reunite with the Ein Sof by reuniting with the sefirot. Right? And the person doing it may not be in a spiritual euphoric state themselves, and it doesn't matter. Right? Because if they've taken time to focus and create those emotions, it's the mitzvah and the Torah that's being elevated. And in a sense, you can always get back to the self-centered trap. Nefesh B'ami, you can always get back in. I can say, yeah, look at the mitzvah I've elevated in the Torah. Okay. But there's something about elevating my own consciousness that it's, in my experience, it's harder to get your own ego out of it. Because boy, wow, look at the experience I had. I want to tell people about it. Wow, I'm so spiritual. I'm elevating myself, right? And you can only elevate yourself through the spiritual worlds. You can't elevate yourself to God, right? Because, as we say, God said to Moshe, no one can see me and live, right? You're not going to elevate yourself to God. You're only going up in the spiritual worlds, and God is not in those either. God's equally hidden in every spiritual world. So the game of elevating my own consciousness to higher spiritual states doesn't get me closer to God, and it's much trickier to get your ego out of it than Jewish meditation, where I'm elevating my emotions and transforming them, and it's hard work, and then I'm elevating the Torah mitzvahs, and for God's sake and for their sake, I'm focusing on creating positive emotions. So as we go in, please keep that in mind, that the whole drive, the whole point of Jewish meditation is either by intellectual focus creating new emotions, or, as we'll see, uncovering emotions that already exist in me. But it's not about, yay, I had this experience and I saw angels and I experienced the world as light, and I'm walking around realizing that this is all an illusion day in, day out. But God forbid someone interrupts me while I'm meditating, then you'll see where my emotions are, right? That's not what we're about. We're about what happens when you're praying and somebody knocks on the door and says, excuse me, there's an emergency, can you come help us? Right? How do I deal with the bumps in life, and how I transform my emotions? Right? Or what do I do when my body says, there's a nice challah in the cupboard, let's get up and have that challah, right? Is that what my day is about? Or do I say, you can have the challah, but how about we just have a cup of tea and some black bread and let's get to business learning, right? What would happen inside if that happened? That's the focus of meditation, is elevating my own emotions and elevating the Torah and mitzvahs that I engage in.
That's Jonah
How so?
at the end.
You say it's Jonah, yeah? Yeah? Do
It
tell?
is. It is, because at the beginning he's not involved with other people, he's
Right.
only involved with himself.
Yeah.
And then at the end you see him, sitting there watching what has taken place, and that, after God tells him, you didn't care about this, or, that kind of thing.
Good. Yeah, so we're pointing out that this is the story of Jonah, of him learning to care about the people around him, and a person, a tzaddik and a prophet, right? This is a prophet. So even a prophet still has work to do on how they share their very, very lofty gifts.
It's the education of a prophet.
Yeah.
It just strikes me that was Jonah at the end.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's jump in here. Reading chapter 16. V'zeh klal gadol be'avodat Hashem labenim.
This then is the important principle regarding the divine service of ordaining.
Right, so when he says klal gadol or ikar, you want to take those moments and create very powerful lenses out of those. Those are moments you say, hold on to this piece. This is going to be helpful in the day when you're experiencing a challenge. Just take this and put that slide into your vision, spiritually, psychically, emotionally. So when he says that, he's like, this is one of the anchors that we'll need. Ha'ikar hu limshol lishlot al hateva shebechalal hashmoli. We had the essential thing.
Whose turn? Where are we?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
My turn? The essential thing is to govern and rule the nature that is in the left part of the heart.
Right, so we're not looking to become 24/7 mystics and walk around not in time and space and walk around just seeing godly light all the time. That's not the point of Jewish meditation. The point is, as we said, be a Beinoni, govern and rule all those emotions of my self-centered drive. Right? That is our work, and that's the most spiritual thing a person can do.
And this is a silly question. God gave us self-centeredness along with a lot of other things.
Yeah?
Doesn't it have its own meaning? It doesn't have to be to the degree of 10, but at the degree of 1, is there some place there that it is a useful tool? That's why he gave it to us.
So the answer is, the question is, self-centeredness was something God created and God gave each of us. So maybe it has a purpose in itself beyond what we're discussing, right? So I'd say, if I'm training for a fight, my coach will hopefully get me a bunch of training partners, right? And those training partners will come into the gym and they will, give me some grief and they will push me and they'll take swings at me. But what's the purpose of having those training partners? Is it for me to not rise above the occasion and be able to defeat them? Right? So the only purpose a training partner has is to make me stronger. And that's how we're seeing the emotions of the animal soul. Right? They're there to egg me on, to get me stronger. That's why God gave them to me, so that my soul is able to rise above its current station. But no, beyond that, there's no reason. The only reason for self-centered drive is for me to then say, okay, let me use that energy for something other-centered.
Let's say by using these people.
Yeah. You're in the gym now, right? You're in the boxing gym?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Let's say you get to be Muhammad Ali,
Good.
and then you take your winnings and you give to charity a lot. And
Yeah,
maybe other
yeah.
people don't even know about it.
Yeah. Good. Well, we're saying the same thing, right? So the self-centered drive, those are my training partners, right? Those are the things that are in my environment for me to be able to rise above them and defeat them. The charity that I'm giving now as a champion, that's the fruits of all the good work I've done because I've become so other-centered. So it all works the same way, right? But yeah, the reason that self-centered drive is there is for us to have something to struggle against. That's why God created it. Al yedei or Hashem ha'ma'ir lenefesh elokit shebemoach.
By means of the divine light that illuminates the divine soul abiding in the brain.
Right, so we learned about this, that when we pray or when we learn, through our chokhmah, binding to the chokhmah of Ein Sof, a little tiny shtickle of the Ein Sof is able to enter into my consciousness, and that, if you remember the part about the two judges, the divine soul and the animal soul, that becomes a third judge that always tips the scale over, makes sure I do the right thing and I care about people around me. Right? So to be the light that allows me to rule over those emotions. Lishlot al halev.
And to rule the desires of the heart. To enable him to master his desires, the Beinoni requires, in addition to his natural ability of one's mind to govern his heart, the help of the divine light which illuminates his mind upon contemplating God's greatness.
All right, so it's not just by the strength of my own higher self. It's that higher self is an actual piece of godliness, and when I allow that higher self to have an insight into what's going on and to weigh in on what I should think, say, and do, I'm actually allowing a spark of divine light into my consciousness, and that overcomes a lot of darkness, so to speak. כשמתבונן במוחו בגדולת אין סוף ברוך הוא, להוליד בבינתו רוח דעת ויראת השם במוחו. Oh, go ahead, yeah.
This mastery of one's nature and desires is achieved when he meditates in his mind on the greatness of the blessed infinite God, so as to create through his understanding a spirit of knowledge and fear of God in his mind.
So this is the essence of the long short way. And it's long because if I don't care so much about God or Torah mitzvahs or even people around me, and now I sit and for 20 minutes in the morning I find some image or some exercise from the Tanya or some meditation from the Tanya. We'll learn many as we go through. And I focus on it in my mind and I make myself focus on it. How long is it going to take till that's really my genuine emotional response?
20 days.
Maybe 20 days, maybe 2 months, maybe a year. maybe many years, right? Depends on the person.
Maybe those 3 years you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of work to sit and to say, doesn't look like I'm wandering through godliness, but the whole world is nothing compared to God, and every experience is divine providence, and I'm going to focus on that in the morning, so that as I walk through the day, that'll be more and more my experience. I know my mind's controlling my heart, and eventually I'm going to feel it. Right? That's a longer path. That takes a while, but it's short. Why? Because what do you call it? It's cognitive behavioral therapy, right? I mean, if you look at cognitive behavioral therapy and this technique, they're quite related in that how I think determines how I feel and how I behave. So once I've actually made that connection, integrated my mind and my heart, and when I focus on that meditation, I can create appropriate love and fear, call it, for Jewish things. Now it's available to me. Right? Just like that golf enthusiast, and you say, "Oh, did you see the last Masters?" And boom, right? They're animated, they're talking, they're there for the next 3 hours, right? Just a burst of emotion every time. They don't have to struggle. That's how we will be once we have integrated mind and emotions using the long, short way. So it's a long time to get there, but it's short, it's direct, because once you're there, now in whatever situation you have that available, because I can always direct my mind back to that meditation. I have complete control, and then I can create those emotions. Right? Remember, we said a person can always have complete control over what their mind focuses on. So no matter what's going on around me, no matter what the stress, I can always redirect my mind back to that meditation. Right? The world is nothing compared to God. And now I have new emotions, and now I've reframed the situation I'm in. So it's long because of the work it takes to actually apply it. It's short because once you've installed it in your consciousness, now it's available all the time. It's yours.
Excuse me. Why do they talk about the fear of God? I mean, why should we fear him?
Yeah, if you like, you can use the word respect. Respect works also. The Hebrew word is yira. So maybe pachad is the Hebrew word that's more translated as fear, and that's the lower level of fear. But in Kabbalah, every emotion has specific levels of consciousness. So there's lower level and higher level fear. Just call them these two words, pachad and yira. Pachad is more, wow, there's a rattlesnake, I'm scared it'll bite me. That's fear. Yira is more, oh my gosh, I'm here in the room with the greatest professor of whatever. They're my idol, and I just don't want to say anything. I don't want to listen because I'm just in awe of their knowledge, right? I have so much respect. I'm gonna weigh my words very carefully here, right? So both of those are actually considered important in terms of creating emotions. We want to have love to do Jewish things, but we also want to have a certain respect, because in Kabbalah, as we said, those are the two wings that elevate the mitzvahs. And if I just do love alone, now I got a mitzvah with one wing, and it's kind of like doing this thing, right? But if I have a little bit of respect in there too, now that mitzvah can elevate. And I think you see it in relationships too, right? Somebody that loves someone but doesn't respect them at all, what is that translated to in terms of behavior, right? That's the guy that just makes a move on a date when clearly, there's no interest here and the person's uncomfortable, right? But I love her, I put my arms around her, I love her so much. Yeah, but did you look in her face and see what she wanted? Did you respect her? Right? So what's a real relationship? Okay, there's love and respect, and a person will wait and see that the other person's desires are as important as their own desires, and no matter how much love I have a little bit of respect, and I'm gonna wait until I see the right signals before I cross that boundary or try to, right? Same thing with God. You can say, I love God, I love God, I love God. If I have no respect, that mitzvah, according to Kabbalah, is not necessarily going to be able to elevate in the truest sense. Make sense? Liot sur mera. Yoraita u'Rabanan v'afilu isur kal shel divrehem chas v'shalom.
Knowledge and fear will cause him to turn away from the evil condemned by the Torah or by our sages, even from the minor rabbinic prohibition, heaven forbid.
Right? So what that's going to do, it'll allow us to do the right thing, when I've said I'm not going to be angry and yell at people, right? That's against Torah law, and it's a self-centered thing to do. So I'm not going to do it. And even though I feel like doing it, I'm going to come back to my meditation. I'm going to create new emotions. I'm going to say, okay, Mr. Person who is yelling at me, I guess I'm here to help you. How can I help you, right? I wonder why you're yelling at me. I'm not going to yell back because that's a prohibition. I'm going to see if there's something I can do to help you, right? Or whatever the situation may be. And remember, as we learned, I'm forgetting which chapter, the Torah and the mitzvahs are seen as being organs for us to actually interface with the Ein Sof. I remember we talked about how the 613 mitzvahs are the organs and the blood vessels within the divine light, and they also represent organs and blood vessels within our soul. And when we engage in them, we actually connect our soul to the Ein Sof, right? We have a structure in our soul and a structure in the Ein Sof. So if I want to have closeness with the Ein Sof, in Kabbalah, that happens through the mitzvah. And I know a lot of them look like just being a good person, like love someone else like yourself. That's a mitzvah, right? And if I can do that one, I become a much better person ethically in North America. But that's also one of the ways that God reaches out to actually touch us in this world, and it's the only way in Kabbalah that we can actually experience union with the essence of God rather than just spirituality. Right? So it's just reminding you of how the Torah mitzvahs are projected in the Tanya and Kabbalah. Be'avat Hashem b'libo b'chalal hayemini.
Contemplation on God's greatness will bring about also a love of God, which reveals itself in the right part of his heart, the seat of the godly soul's emotional faculties.
Right, so first, I meditate on the greatness of God, and that created, call it fear or respect in my mind. Right? Like, you ever call somebody on the phone, leave a message, and then you hang up the phone, and then you go on, you talk to your friend, and we're going to go meet here, and this and that. And you pick up your phone, and you realize the message has been recording the whole time. Ever happened to you?
Yeah.
What do you feel?
Yeah.
Honestly, what do you feel at that moment?
Old.
Okay, well. Right. Hold on. What did we say? Did I say something embarrassing? I'm afraid. Right? I have a moment of, I thought something was private, and I was actually leaving that message to my friend, and I weigh my words. Oh, do I have to apologize for something? Did I make a joke? Right? I mean, your first response is, wow, I didn't realize this person was still listening. Right? My mistake. Right? So that's the same thing. That's when I realize that this experience, which I think is just my own private consciousness, that this is just a conversation with God and a chance for me to elevate myself, and I say, wow, God was watching thought, emotion, speech, action, everything, right? Everything that I think is private, that whole thing was a message to God, and God is watching it down to the depths of my consciousness beyond what I'm aware of. Woo! Right? Never mind, 2 minutes of conversation that I didn't realize was being recorded on someone's message. Imagine a whole lifetime of conscious and subconscious thought, conscious and subconscious emotion, and thought, speech, and action, right? All that is the message we're leaving to God, and God's looking at it, right? If that 2-minute conversation creates a little bit of fear, really focusing on that reality of what the Ein Sof is, perhaps that will create an even larger sense of respect and fear, and now I'll be in a higher functioning state, because I know I'm accountable. I'm accountable for what happens even deep in my subconscious. Well, call it in my deep in my consciousness. But not only that fear, when I meditate on holy, good gravy. Thanks, sir. Just like, and? Okay, we'll stop here, but let me finish up. So when I focus on that meditation, as we said, not only does it create that kind of fear or respect, it also creates a great love. That this whole experience, every gift I've given, every interaction I've had, has been a chance for me to interact with the Ein Sof. And not only that, we've been given Torah and mitzvahs, which is God's way of impossibly reaching into reality and giving us a chance to just have a hug and a kiss, which shouldn't be possible, right? I can go into the spiritual worlds and I can experience angels and things like that, but that's all nothing, right? You can't get close to God by becoming more spiritual. Here we got a chance, our soul in heaven was put into a body, and here we can actually experience the essence of God, which is a soul you can't even get close to. So I may, when I have these meditations, also inspire divine soul emotions, both of respect and of love, and those are going to be our tools, and that's going to be the point of our meditation. Yeah, good stuff. Any questions? Hang out. I'll be here for a while.
Your name was mentioned last night in Royal Oak.
Uh-oh.
Did you go to school in, oh my God, Montreal?
Yeah, I'm from Montreal, yeah.
Okay, so the comedians last night.
Oh, yeah.
You